Well, hi, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Mark Graven. My guests today are Catherine Chabiron and Fabrice Bernhard. So I'll say hello, and because they're both French, I don't speak any French. I'll say bonjour to everybody. But Catherine is a board member for the Institut Lean France, which is a member of the Lean Global Network, like the Lean Enterprise Institute here in the U.S. Catherine is an expert in lean management with a professional journey that spans over 40 years with experience in a range of service and support functions, including IT, logistics, sales, finance, and HR, both in France and globally. We'll learn about her origin story, but she has roots in the automotive industry, where she's lived and breathed the lean philosophy. This includes many trips to the Toyota supply chain in Japan. So Catherine is not only a lean executive coach, but also an author. Her book is titled Learning to Scale at Theodo Group, Growing a Fast and Resilient Company. So I'll say bonjour, Catherine. Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And here is the book, by the way.
Yes, so we can see the book.
Possibly to discuss today.
Yes, Learning to Scale at Theodo Group. And so speaking of Theodo Group, we're joined by their Chief Technology Officer and co-founder, Fabrice Bernhard. He founded Theodo in Paris in 2009. The company has grown on average 50% a year over the last 8 years and generated 90 million euros in revenue in 2022. He's now based in London to help with the international expansion. So Fabrice, bonjour, good day. Welcome, how are you?
Good day. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes. Of all the words to stumble over, I don't know why the word technology tripped me up there, but we're going to start maybe with Catherine. I'd like to ask people how you started your lean journey. It sounds like it was with the Toyota production system, but let me turn over to you to hear more about your background and origin here.
Well, when you join Automotive, you cannot not do lean. I was working not directly in a car maker industry, but in a supplier, in a rank one supplier of car makers all over the world. Mm-hmm. And it was quite obvious we had to do lean. And my particular experience is that lean was quite developed in manufacturing. It was starting in the lean engineering part in developing products. And my job at that time was to develop lean in offices, in support functions, which I did quite extensively in the domain of finance, which sounds curious, but that was in accounting, for example, where you have a lot of recurrent tasks and there's a lot of flows and a lot of documents, systems, and data to take care of. But most of the lean experience I have derives from our activity in IT, where we were providing production systems, and I really helped IT in that automotive company to propose a lean approach to bugs, problems, quality, releases, and so on. This is where my experience stems from. And then I moved out of the automotive industry, continued lean with different industries, progressively moved out to services like the post office. I have extensively worked with the French post office to help them do lean. And I heard about Theodo, and they were in the tech business, the digital, writing apps for the web or mobile phones, and I thought, oh my God, how and they were saying that they were using lean practically as a strategy to run the business. And this what brought me to them, because I wanted to see what they were doing. And since I was doing a lot of visits, Gemba visits to French companies, and I was telling the tale in Planet Lean magazine, just rang the bell and said, hello, can I come and visit you? Mm-hmm. And this is the story, how it started.
And then speaking of visits, as it said in your bio, you had trips to Japan. How would you describe the impact of visiting there?
Well, every time I go back there, it's those TPS study tours, nothing specific. A lot of other people have done it. We actually met in Japan with Fabrice in such a tour. Every time we go there, every time we take a new step back. For example, our last visit in May, we had a really deep thinking about what Kaizen actually meant. Is Kaizen so much the initiative of frontline people? No, actually, frontline people have very limited opportunities to do Kaizen because they can only impact the gesture, the technical, the workstation and the gestures they make. But actually, there is a lot more Kaizen that is very key in the company. Any waste produced when you launch a new product. So do the engineers who design new products come and see and do the Kaizen with the frontline people on whatever they create. Mm-hmm. Every time you change the line, manufacturing engineering people, they have to come to the frontline people and also check the impact of what the decision they took. Supply chain. Every time the supply chain brings in a new supplier, a new material, a new way of, a new lead time, they are going to impact the production. So Kaizen is, that was really thinking about it again. Kaizen is not just a frontline operator business. It's everybody's business.
Right. One other question for you, Catherine, before we'll turn to Fabrice for a bit. When you were doing some of that work in office and support functions, I'm curious to hear if you have any stories about trying to get people engaged with Lean. They might say, well, we're not the factory, we're not the shop floor, we're different. You mentioned repeatable processes. Sometimes people have trouble seeing that. Do you have any recollections of some of the ways you got people to cooperate with you?
I would say the big bosses were the most reluctant.
Interesting.
Like just get out of my silo. I know what I'm doing. Don't bother me. But every time I went to the frontline operators and we were doing some Gemba and just what I remember one day where we were watching an accountant trying to enter invoices, supply invoices in SAP. And then we took a step aside and watched another more experienced one, and the other one was taking three times less time to do the same job. And when the local boss saw that, he thought, "My God, I haven't helped the people understand all the tips and tricks. I'm just putting them in front of a machine and assuming that they know." So usually when we were with frontline of operators and local management, providing they were willing to open their eyes and change things, it usually worked. Yeah. The big bosses were more reluctant, so I had to go around them sometimes.
So Fabrice, maybe I'm wondering if if it's better for you to tell some of the story of Theodo Group about the company and the founding and what you do, or your Lean origin story. I don't know how those are intertwined, perhaps.
I can completely intertwine them both together.
Great.
Because they're very much linked. If you start, so I co-founded the first company before Theodo called unmatched.com. So that was a typical web startup. We were the website to find sports bars and cafes and restaurants where to find these places where you couldn't watch sports games. Mm-hmm. And that was an amazing adventure straight out of uni. And the product became very popular. We reached break even, but at the same time, it wasn't generating that much revenue. It was enough as a student or straight out of university person, but clearly it wasn't enough for our future ambitions, and that's when we started Theodo. And I'm mentioning that because at the early stages, really is product DNA. We wanted to create a product that generated value to users. And we managed to generate value for users and not enough for the business. But one asset we have is this technical team. So we start servicing other small businesses that, where at the time when 2008, 2009, digital transformation is big, and so every small business has this like low-hanging fruit of thing you could digitize. And so we start doing it for one of our roommates, like a business that was in the same building as us, and it's like it creates tremendous value for them. The software we built together was actually used for 10 years, generated tens of millions of revenue over the years. And we really loved building it. So that's the beginning of Theodo, trying to build the kind of useful products that we know how to build for others. Mm-hmm. But there's two key moments in the journey. That's where we come to Lean. The first key moment is we start, even though we're digital native, so we do like stuff that looks agile. We're not expert enough in agility at the time, and so we're doing some kind of weird mix of everything. With clearly mixed results. And there's this moment where we're starting to be very frustrated by how things work. And to make it very simple, in the usual way of working, you agree, you sign a contract on what you're supposed to do for what price. And this applies to a lot of industries. Software is one of them, and there's a lot of complexity. And as soon as you sign a contract, the issue is there's so much complexity in what you're building that it starts becoming like a constant battle between a business or customer that wants more features within the scope, and of course like the delivery team trying to maintain the margins and sanity, and so trying to cut some corners, and so we reach a stage where like, okay, we need a different way of working. This is not good enough, and we decide to go really strict on Agile. Really Scrum by the book, extreme programming, and kind of impose it on the clients and say, look, this is the way we believe things can be done better. We can build better products this way. So that's the only way we want to offer. And we were very lucky because actually the first project was an amazing success. Mm-hmm. And the second and third. And it was really, day and night. All of a sudden, the clients were very happy because we were building exactly what they needed, or actually things that they needed but didn't know they needed at the beginning. The teams were much happier because they got engaged in the problem solving, like trying to actually create value for the business. And for us as a business, it was very scalable. Like all of a sudden, a new client was a new Agile team around them. The client was in the team, and therefore before that, I was the chief firefighter going around trying to solve problems. And all of a sudden, the teams were so empowered around the client, they managed to solve almost every problem they faced. And that's the key. That's really important because I think for us, that was the eye-opening moment where we thought, oh, wow, there are different ways of working. Mm-hmm. And they can really change everything, both for the customer, creating more value, but also for the people really, enjoying it more. Right. And when we realized that Agile was good for structuring how a team works with a client on a project, but quite limited in telling us what to do at a corporate level, like what do you do with recruitment, what do you do with sales, what do you do with strategy, with financing, what do you do with projects that need more than one team. And luckily for us, this was before SAFe became popular. Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, sorry, not everyone knows Agile. Can you say what SAFe stands for?
Yeah, so Agile is most known for one methodology called Scrum, and it's often, and when you talk about Agile, you often refer to the Agile Manifesto, mm-hmm. agilemanifesto.org, and SAFe, which is the acronym for Scaled Agile for Enterprise, or I think. Mm-hmm. Is a framework that was built over time to address exactly the issue I had at the time and that most organizations have, which is I'd love to be agile. I can see the benefits of being agile, but I'm not a one team of software developer. So how do I get these benefits at the size of my large company or my large project that involves many teams? And SAFe is a framework trying to answer that. And at the time, it didn't exist, so we went for a different option. And now, in hindsight, I'm quite assertive on the fact that SAFe does scale, but it doesn't scale agile. And so to come back to us at the time, what we wanted was really scale these like agile principles, mm-hmm. And we met with someone who said, yeah, I had the same issue. I was like, I tried Agile, it was amazing, but I was in this large telco, and as soon as I tried to apply it at a bigger scale, it just didn't work, and I could feel that it was profoundly not thought for like larger scale. So I looked for something else, and I found something, and it's called Lean.
Mm.
And if you want, I can actually help you on your journey, because I've been on this journey for a while, and I've actually like quit the telco, and I'm now a Lean coach. So do you want me to help you on that? And of course, what he said resonated so much with our experience. They were like, okay, yeah, of course, let's try it. And the rest is history.
Yeah. And that's where things evolved. Catherine earlier mentioned the idea of Lean as a strategy. Is that how you would describe things now at Theodo Group?
Yeah, I think, at the time, what I'm talking is about 2012, 2013. So we're a bit more than a dozen. So we're quite small. So I'm not saying we had very structured strategy at the time, but I think we had a deep vision and desire to maintain that agile magic that we had experienced. So that was the strategy. No, that was the desire.
Yeah.
And when we started understanding Lean and getting into that journey, it clearly became the strategy to achieve that.
Yeah.
So how can we keep the ingenuity of a small team of technologists and business experts working together, coming up with better solution, creating more value? How can we keep that in every function and everywhere in the company? And clearly the best framework we've come up with, it's not a silver bullet, but the best framework we've accounted is Lean thinking and TPS.
So, Catherine, from your perspective as an observer and then as a collaborator for the book and bringing that story to market, what are some of your observations and thoughts on what Fabrice has said?
Well, when I went to see them, I said, can I come for a few visits? Because I was a bit ambitious on the book. By the way, with 3 authors, but the initial articles that I wrote are the core of the book. And I'm talking about those articles. When I came to see them, I was ambitious because I had done Gemba visits with French companies before, but just telling a very limited story about Lean engineering or Kaizen or CEO behavior. But this time I wanted to really try and describe the whole company. So we were really trying to check what the big challenges can be in any company, by the way, not only a scale-up. And each of the visits was an opportunity to check how they manage the relation with the customers, how they were transforming leads into sales, into actual products, into after sales, into cash. How did they recruit, retain talent? How did they keep on the technical? How did they manage to survive in a very fast changing technical world? Not to mention the latest ChatGPT and so on. How do you keep on edge on this technical world? And generally speaking, how do they build their strategy based on all those challenges? So every visit was trying to address one of those business challenges. And it was very clear from visit 1 or 2 that they were using TPS extensively. Like, for example, the relationship with the customer obsession was very much in line with the roof of the TPF that we all know with the customer satisfaction.
Right.
They were very much working the engagement of people. They were very aware that you cannot satisfy a customer if you're not taking care of the people that are in the front line. So they were working on systems that could enable the daily work of people. They were working on the possibility to call for help. They had this lead time obsession, like the Kanban. So the Kanban is something that Agile has adopted, but very often Kanban is just making a product go through a funnel of activities, and it's more like looking at the output. What they were really trying to do is understand what was happening in each and every step of the activity, and leading great conversations when they were stuck. And also they were working on quality, because I discovered that they had read the book of Sam Nomura, Dontotsu, and some of the people in Theodore are very much on radical quality, and they were really trying to use know-how and knowledge from manufacturing into production of tech apps.
Mm-hmm.
So the TPS was absolutely extensively the support of their daily work, and that was amazing, because it's it's the digital world, it's a tech company, it's growing fast. The people are like, Fabrice, I may be wrong, but the average age of the people is around 30-ish. Most of them have never known anything about Toyota. None of them has been in industry.
Right.
And still they're trying. They're trying because they see the benefit from it.
Yeah. So
yes. Yes,
okay.
I was very impressed by the fact that they were relying on TPS.
Yeah. And then we can talk more about a Theodo group, but can you tell us a little bit more about the story of how the book came to be? You said you started with some articles and decided there was kind of a more complete story to tell as a book.
Yeah, well, actually, the Fabrice, if I may, and you will certainly add, we had those 6 articles that I had done for Planet Lean, the 6 visits with the 6 business challenges, and it was very interesting we were thinking, how can we help the tech world with this story? Unfortunately, most of my articles were actually referring to TPS and to Lean concepts that most people in the tech world don't know anything about. So we decided to add some explanations about what I had commented on the field. And we did that with one of the co-authors is the author of Learning to Scale, a book that was written already before this book, Just Learning to Scale, on how Lean can help people scale up. And the book Learning to Scale was actually also very much inspired by the Lean strategy by Michael Badi.
Right.
So that's the story. It's the Lean strategy. Can we actually use Lean as a strategy to grow and sustain our growth? Second, Learning to Scale, refocus on tech scale-ups. And Learning to Scale at Theodore Group, the idea of a case study, a real case study, because there's a lot of backstage stories in the book to tell how it works. It actually works. Fabrice, you may want to add on this.
No, I think it's been incredible for us to have, it was incredibly full of learnings to have somebody with Catherine experience observing us, then writing about us. Then it was even, better to have that as a book. Yeah. And that's why we're here, because I think it's I think what Catherine and her co-authors, but I do credit her a lot, have done is I think it's a really practical example of what Lean can look like in the tech industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure there's any other. I mean, I think it's the first example of that kind. Learning to Scale is an amazing book, but it's still slightly theoretical, whereas Catherine's book is much more example based.
Yeah. And I will put a link in the show notes to those Planet Lean articles, the deep dive into a tech company series. Fabrice, one question for you, because I think this term has been used once in a previous episode, but I don't know if everyone listening is familiar. The difference between a startup and a scale up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, this is all trendy wordings, but I think a scale up is often used for a startup that has gained traction. So usually post Series A, Series B, which in startup jargon means once you have a theoretically profitable business model, and are therefore, once you've hit product market fit, and the reason you're raising money is really to like accelerate the expansion of your market.
Yeah.
And that's usually when you call it scale up. And there's post product market fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And, Fabrice, I was also going to ask, when you talk about Lean as a strategy, we can also talk about Lean as a culture and a leadership style. How in what ways do you share Lean thinking with your CEO and other leaders within Theodo Group?
I think it's actually, you know what, it's a really good question. How do we embody Lean apart from, saying we like it?
Yeah.
So first, we like it seriously, which means we've been reading books, we've been, attending conferences, we've kind of launched a community of practice of other tech companies interested in Lean. There's actually a few of them. So that's how we managed to study a bit more. And then we try to implement it in our own company, and it starts probably with Gembas. So both my co-founder Benoit and I do Gembas every week. So we look at how work is being done on the ground, and we have this regular discipline of observing, asking questions, learning, sometimes trying to help, but definitely not micromanaging. That's not the opportunity for micromanagement.
Right.
So Gemba is probably number one. So we do that on a weekly basis. We do leverage the help of quite a few Lean coaches across the group, often in an approach which consists in having, for example, Benoit and I have a monthly Gemba with Mike Abale. So we'll be walking around the office with him, and then in these occasions he'll be doing the observing, thinking out loud, helping us see things that we don't see, helping shake things up slightly. So that's and then there's a lot, but then there's a lot more things I could mention. But I think what was very interesting is, or you could also see it in a chronological point of view. So we first started with a Lean coach, and what we adopted was stuff that we found completely mind blowing, but like visual management on customer value. So, for example, one of the first things we did is put the voice of the customer. We would actually ask the customer, we would send a survey every week to ask them how they felt about the project. And that voice was then stored in some database. And we start with the Lean coach. One of the first things we did is actually print that and put it on the project board that the team was using to manage a project. So all of a sudden, the voice of the customer was, one, shared with the team, made extremely visible. And we made it even more visible because we decided a good standard was 8 out of 10. So we would put a green smiley if it was above, and a red smiley, like a red sad smiley if it was below 8.
Right.
Second thing we did, very, very connected to that. As soon as you show the problem in a very visual way and empower the team and show it to the team, the next step is clearly to empower the team. So we trained them on problem solving. We trained them on problem solving, and then started really encouraging a culture of problem solving. So it was, a 5-column paper for daily problem solving, but also dojos every week where a team would show their latest problem solving, and the rest of the company would look at it, ask questions, make challenges. And then so we looked also at A3s. So that was a bit like the first steps in Lean. And then we had this encounter with Mike Abale, who with his amazing tact said, this is not Lean.
Right.
Lean is Kanban, it's Kaizen, it's much more than that. It's the whole of TPS. You're just scratching the surface. And luckily for us, we don't have stupid egos. So what we heard was, wow, you're just scratching the surface. There's so much more you can get out of diving into Lean. And so with the help of Michael Bailey and other people, we've been indeed, starting to spread Kanban. And what is very interesting, typically Kanban, I mean, Catherine did mention it, there's a way to understand it in the tech world, which has a few misconceptions, but they're very widespread. So having somebody with Michael Bailey's understanding of the industry and, the context in which it was created, it's very easy for him to point at the misconception and say, yes, okay, you don't have cardboards like a manufacturing company. Okay, this is not the issue. The misconception is the whole point of these cardboards in a factory will be to highlight inventory and lead time. And here on your digital version, I don't see lead time, I don't see inventory. So typically these kind of challenges will be like, okay, how can we make inventory visible on digital? How can we make lead time visible in digital? So, and basically get back the benefit of what Kanban could be. Kanban is meant to solve. We also start doing Kaizen. So really, we've tried different format. The format that we've kind of converged to, which is very interesting, is a one-day workshop. So we'll bring one of our internal Kaizen experts and take the team out of their project for a day and like work on an improvement opportunity that either tackles working condition issue, or sometimes even better, a deep customer value issue, like something that is not part of the backlog, but something that typically performance or a lot of things about performance, could be like accessibility, quality in terms of making it more, like making the user interface more inclusive, things like that.
Yeah. One quick follow-up question for you, Fabrice. You talk about going to Gemba and you're there in the office. Being a tech company, is there a lot of virtual work being done? People working from home, people working remotely, and if so, what does going to Gemba mean in that context?
I mean, we continue to do Gembas during lockdowns, and the fact that we're a tech company really helps. We do strongly encourage everyone to be in the same office when we're planning for a Gemba. So even though the product is digital, and indeed we all gather around the big screen and look at what the product looks like on the screen, there's a lot of stuff that you see in the interactions between people, probably better when face to face. So that's more. So there's so many different types of Gembas. I mean, we're trying to do Gembas on everything now. But I say there's like the product Gembas, typically the ones Benoit does, which will be about looking at the product and asking the questions, asking questions about the value. Where's the value? Well, are we trying to create more value? Truly understanding product. And the fact that the product is digital doesn't, as long as you have a big screen on which, around which you can gather as a team, it's good enough. I do Gembas on code, so that's even more virtual. And I've tried different things, but I usually start by looking at an architecture schema, which is probably the best you can get in terms of tech, of big picture point of view. And then I usually dive in a recent commit. So what has become the really widespread practice in tech is you write code and you write in every chunk of work, so typically a few hours, or some people are very extreme and do it every few minutes. You will package it as a commit and then push it to the shared repository of code. And so it's interesting to look at recent commit. For one rule I use sometimes, I often use, is I will look at the last commit that has like a fix, the word fix or bug fix in the title. So be like, interesting. Let's look at, the last time you encountered a bug and you did something about it. And so then you can look, the 10, 20, 30, 50 lines of code that have been written. really dive into some quality issue that the team has encountered.
Mm-hmm. So, Catherine, I want to turn back to you on maybe some broader themes that you touch on in the book, and I think you brought up a little bit earlier around continuous improvement and Kaizen. Like, what does that mean to you, and how do leaders foster a culture of learning and continuous improvement?
It's the key. Huh? It's the key of the thing, of the matter, because the whole point of when you grow, the risk. This is why we started with the idea of scale up. The risk when you grow is to run into a bureaucracy that gets very easily stuck. So continuous improvement is the way out of the bureaucracy. Not that we don't need a bureaucracy. Of course, we need some finance reports, some reporting, a number of rules about how to purchase and who is supposed to purchase and whatever, what have you, or how to recruit and who is supposed to recruit and how. But the continuous improvement is the key matter, and this is where people start learning. We have a part in the book that discusses what Fabrice just mentioned earlier, the one-day workshop on Kaizen. They have a Kaizen expert, a Mr. Kaizen, that come in and help teams to undergo one or several Kaizens, depending on the topics that they have selected. And at the end, it's really a learning process, because he's asking people, number one, to think about alternative ways of doing things. And second, to test 1, 2, or 3 of those alternative ways, depending on the time they have. And every time it's an individual learning that comes out of it. So the point is, problem solving and continuous improvement are the activities, the daily activities that will create learning, and learning you need to be able to scale fast. Mm-hmm. Remember, this is a company that you mentioned that they're growing very fast by double-digit every year. So that means they are recruiting extensively every year, not to mention that they have, like every other company, a number of people leaving for other opportunities. So they have a permanent need to get to onboard people. And at the same time, the technology is moving extremely fast. They have no other way than learn faster than their competitors. This is the survival game. How do they learn faster? To be more effective, more competitive, to design more value, to identify new trends and so on. This is through problem solving and continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And this is what they try to do with a number of with Andon, with the lead time, with the Kanban conversations, with the visual management, with the discussions with the customer. By the way, Fabrice mentioned this discussion with the customer. It's not a net promoter score, that questionnaire. It's really a discussion on a weekly basis with the customer, where they're going to ask the customer, is there a problem, Mr. Customer, in the way we support you? Are we going in the right direction? Are we going fast enough with the right quality? And this discussion is not always fun. It's not fun, because the customer will probably tell them, this is not what I wanted, or you were late here, or you're stuck there. And sometimes it's the customer's fault as well, because we're waiting for some validation and so on, whatever. Yeah. It's not fun, but they're learning through that.
And Fabrice, what have you learned around creating that culture of learning and the way it helps you scale more effectively at Theodo Group?
Well, I think there's a consensus. I mean, every leader that has a somehow long-term vision wants to create a culture of learning. That's quite consensual. And the question is, how do you implement it in the most effective way? And I think TPS is a great framework for that. Because it's really like, there's a lot of things. There's one thing, which is you need to raise the standards. And so that's what Gemba brings you, or visual management. You know, you clarify what the game is, and you clarify how demanding it is. And you know, you walk around to check that like people are not getting slightly lazier as you know, as the company scales. So really trying to push their thinking as you know, as hard as it can, because that's the amazing thing I find about Lean is it's really this humanistic approach of saying good thinking will create good products, and thinking is what we have as humans that is very unique. So developing our thinking as much as we can is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So really,
yeah.
And so Gemba's to like, you know, keep connection of what really happens, but also maintain high standards. Problem solving as, you know, the constant workout that everyone in your organization practices to exactly keep the brain muscle fit. And then Kaizen to keep the creative the creative brain muscle fit, not just solving issues, but really like looking beyond issues, what is doable. Yeah, so I mean, the Lean tools have been very helpful. A3, I love A3 as a way to, you know, typically I love it at the leadership team level, because I think it's a great way for the leadership team to think, I mean, to get engaged together in a change that is needed. You know, it's not just the CMO who's buying a marketing software, but it's really the CMO saying, okay, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is the current situation, the analysis I've made, and the countermeasures I propose. And then you have the whole leadership team that can be, you know, that can like challenge stuff, but also understand better why the problem is there. And then everyone's committed with the change. That's amazing. And then more generally, I find super interesting Lean concepts. I mean, Jidoka and just in time. But let's say Jidoka, the idea that the best way to learn is to learn from problems, but to learn from small problems, of course.
Right.
So the earlier you detect the problem, the easier it is to empower the team on solving it. You know, you don't need 20 years of experience to solve small problems. So making sure, creating the system that will detect problems very early when they're small enough for the team to be fully autonomous on addressing them. The andon chain, you know, we use, Catherine loves it because we use andon as a verb in the company. Have you andoned? Have you andoned early enough?
Yeah.
So, but really this idea that the management structure is a chain of help. And therefore, if you had a problem, no issue. If you had a problem and didn't andon your manager, ask for help, well, then that's more annoying. If the manager didn't know and didn't andon his own manager, his or her own manager, that's another issue. So these are all, you know, these parts of the TPS system that combine together create this learning culture in a way that I've not seen anyone offer a way to get there as in a way that is as articulate as TPS has brought me.
Yeah.
And by the way, if I may add, all those Gemba visits that the leaders of Theodo do, and the problem solving, it's all those add-ons and problem solving are actually opportunities to understand where the company is stuck. If you have to develop a strategy in terms of products, of markets, of where we're going to aim at next, and so on, they need to know where they stand. They need to know the capability of the company. So each problem solving that they're looking at, each Gemba visits and each conversations that they have, tell them exactly where they stand. You cannot ask more than what people can do at a certain time. You know, if you're stuck at a certain level, their job is to try and develop this weakness, if I may. So all those Gemba and discussions on problem solving and Kaizen and very the discussions with A3 that enables collaboration between different teams. All those help the founders define a better strategy because they understand better where they start from.
Yeah. Catherine, I wanted to ask you, about continuous improvement and how it addresses not just the scale up challenge, the scaling or growth challenge in different companies, but societal challenges.
Do you mean generally speaking or in Theodore?
Well, either way.
It's know-how, I would say. It's not so easy. Everybody thinks that they can do problem solving and continuous improvement, but it's like cycling. If you don't cycle every day, it's like sport. If you don't practice every day, you're not very proficient at it. And very, very quickly, you will usually try the first solution that comes to your mind. Actually, you think problems in terms of solutions very, very rarely in terms of causes or conditions. So problem solving and continuous improvement, Kaizen, whatever, all those forms of sitting back and thinking are helping people to develop proficiency and confidence and trust in their capability to change their work environment and their product, their value, and makes them far more adapted to changes. So societal, of course, once you're proficient in that, you can use them for any societal change. Clearly, for example, I know some people, this is not something we have discussed with Fabrice, but I know some teams in Theodore are discussing green code or, reducing waste on code, that kind of thing, because code can be very expensive in terms of energy consumption as well. So yes, of course, proficiency can help you address any kind of challenge.
Yeah. And as we start to wrap up here, Fabrice, maybe one question back to you. Why are some of the current ways of scaling a company broken? What lessons would you have for others about like what they should stop doing in addition to what they should do more of?
What they should stop doing. That's a very interesting one. No, I think if you look at the scaling playbook of the tech industry, it's very interesting because that's where we're getting into kind of like ethical territory. Because basically there's the lean strategy. The lean strategy is saying, okay, let's scale, but let's scale in a way that is sustainable, that is long-term, and is sustainable in terms of, long-term vision, but also sustainable for society. And you have a different playbook, which is the kind of 0 to 1 Peter Thiel playbook, which is to say, you identify a market where you can actually build a monopoly, and then you take that position and then you extract value out of it. And I think I don't like that approach, because I think first that approach is like there's something ethically wrong in saying, okay, I'm not creating value, I'm extracting value from society. And I think that's what the younger generations have been very up against, which is to say, oh, we're not confident, and when we're joining a company, that company actually has a vision of contributing positively to society. And I think that's really important. And it's clearly not trying to extract value from a monopoly. And then it's interesting because once you have, like, depending on the two visions you can have, I mean, if we decide that the world is like black and white between these two, I guess when you want to extract, what you do is you raise a lot of money to go faster than others. You hire super senior people, and then you ask these super senior people and experienced people who've already done it before to just execute the playbook. And I would say that in most, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't work. The first one is money has become expensive again.
Mhm.
So raising billions is much less easy nowadays. And also what we've experienced is when you hire a lot of senior people and ask them to execute super fast on playbook, you don't get the collaboration. So if and like it becomes super hard to go into what these people are doing because they're very senior. You've hired them to do the job, and so they're really asking you to not look at what they're doing.
Yeah,
and I think
don't bother me.
that's something that, you know, of course you need to hire senior people. You need that experience, but you need to be careful that you do it in a way where it's compatible with the culture, where you can still collaborate with these people, understand they will have to work with others, look into what others are doing, let others look into what they're doing, and work together.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you both. Catherine, maybe let me just turn to you one last time. If there's anything else that you would like to share with the listeners about the book or any kind of closing thoughts.
No, I think basically I'll bounce back on Fabrice's word. The collaboration in a scaling company is really important. You know the story about what we usually qualify as the big company disease is that process will win over customer, number one. We didn't discuss that too much, but this is what those super experts will bring in, the processes. The silos will win over the teamwork because of the bureaucracy of the silos. And we need those silos of expertise, as Fabrice said. And eventually the compliance will win over the initiative, like do the playbook and don't bother me.
Right.
So all those tricks are easily there when you start growing. When you grow complexity, you grow difficulty. And Lean is a way to organize teamwork again, collaboration, daily discussion, conversations, raising questions, opening up. And this is what we need to aim at. It's not comfortable, it's not easy every day, but wow, it pays. It pays off. That's what we try to explain in the book.
Yeah. Well, I hope people will check out the book, Learning to Scale at Theodo Group. And I want to thank our guests here today, Catherine Chabiron and Fabrice Bernhard. Thank you for sharing some perspectives about I think what's becoming more common, but I think it's noteworthy when it's done well, when Lean and other practices are helpful in a fast-growing technology company. So great to hear your stories and perspectives here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Thank you, Mark, for having us.
Yes, I should say merci beaucoup, and I'm quickly exhausting the amount of French that I can speak badly, but thanks to you both.
Thanks.